Okay, so as I stated, we are in Genesis chapter 16, and what we're looking at, I'll put this right here for now, is a movement that we see with what God is doing when He's actually beginning to put forth a foundation. Everybody knows, and we've all heard of Abraham. Abraham is the father of what? Faith.
Faith.
All right. And the scriptures also called him he would be the father of what? A multitude of what? Nations. And any foundation doesn't just happen because we just call it that. Things are foundational or important or pivotal. Did I say that right? Mm-hmm. They are centered. How's that? For a reason. All right. We look at the day the birthday, and we celebrate that all the time. No, we say, okay, somebody has a birthday. We say, anniversaries. Those things are important because why? Something happened. Well, the reason why Abraham is such a central figure in Scripture is because what happened and what God did and what God centered in his life. And one of the things that we can take from that is that just like how God centered activities in Abraham's life, He's trying to do the same thing with us. And that's the correlation that we have to try to match. I see what God did with Abraham. How do I recognize what God is doing similarly in my life? Now, one of the things you're going to realize, we've already looked at Abraham when God called him. And one of the things that we often think of is when we say, okay, God is about to use you. You get excited, right? Mm-hmm. You get happy. Mm-hmm. Amen. So God was about to use Abraham. Wow. First thing God told Abraham was what?
Get out from among your kin.
Leave your family. Leave the area that you're living in, and go to an area that I will what?
Show you.
Now wait a minute. When God used you, ain't you supposed to be like something that you want? Something that's going to make you smile?
No.
Something that's going to make you feel, yes, this is exactly what I was looking for. Mm-hmm. But don't we all want to be used by God?
Yeah.
Oh, are you sure?
Yes.
Okay. Because sometimes when you're getting ready to be used by God, it may not be that like dream thing that you were looking for. So then he told him to leave. He said, leave the area and then leave your what? Your family. Mm-hmm. Abram had a brother that had a son, and his brother died, left his son without a what? Father. A father. Abraham is leaving, and you know Abraham's feeling is like, I'm going to take Lot with me. But wait a minute. Did God tell him to take Lot?
No. He told him not to.
So that's not easy, is it? Sometimes when God is using you, you got to make tough decisions. Decisions that people might even question you on. But yet, God didn't strike Abraham with lightning when he decided, well, I know you told me to leave him. I'm going to take a Lot with me. Because one of the things that God does, was God surprised?
No.
So even though God told Abraham, leave your family, God knew that, well, I know he's still going to take Lot. Why? Because God he can't learn that. He knows
all knowing.
But he knew that eventually Lot and Abraham were going to have to do what? Separate. All right? And then he called him to this land, and then when he got to the land and God came and spoke to him at night and showed him and gave him a promise and said, I'm going to bless you and use you, and I'm going to make you're going to become a great nation. And then right after that, in the new land that God told him to go to, guess what happened? A famine. You ain't got no crops. You got all these cattle to feed. You got all these different things, and you ain't got. So now the famine comes, and the famine represents, how do we identify with that? God calls you to do something, and you thinking, okay, well God must be going to finance it. That's how you know God's leading you, because God's going to bless you with money. Mm-hmm. But not so with Abraham. Next thing we know, Abraham is like, I don't got nothing here because it's a famine. And so he does a decision. He makes another decision. Just like he made a decision to bring Lot. He made a decision. And let me just throw this in there. When God tells you he's going to bless you, a lot of times the famine is not something that comes in because God directed. We always got to keep in mind that we are dwelling in a place where we have somebody that is called the prince and power of the air. The ruler of this world. And that's who? Satan. So the minute God tells you, then the famine can come because of that. But Abraham decides, well, I'm going to handle the famine by going to get help. And he's not going to God for help. He's going to where? Egypt. He's going down to Egypt to go get some help. He goes down there, and then of course he tells the little lie because he thinks that they're going to kill him because of his wife. And they find out about it. We went through that study. We're not going to go through it again. But anyway, when if all boils down to it, they call Abraham. They call him on his lie. Tell him, you get out of here. But he came out with a whole bunch of what? Extra donkeys and sheep and cattle, maid servants and men servants. So the dowry that was paid for his wife that was there in Pharaoh's court became part of Abraham's what? Wealth. And then we saw that because of that, now him and Lot have extra people, extra cattle, and now the land can't support what? Both. And it becomes a strife. Wait a minute. Didn't God call him?
Yes.
So why we got strife?
Because he didn't do what God told him.
Yeah, but God knew about it, didn't he?
Yes, he knew.
So wait a minute. Are you trying to tell me that you can be doing God's work and you can have strife?
Yeah.
You can have struggle. You can have famine. And you can have difficulty. Now, see, that's a problem because that's not what I hear when I watch the TV and I watch it. That's not what I hear. I don't know about y'all. Do y'all hear something different?
Yeah.
That as long as you serving God, you're supposed to be what?
Wealthy, rich,
Well,
healthy.
I don't know what Bible they're reading. But now, Abraham will become a wealthy person.
Yes, he will.
But he also what? Had to go through it. He had to struggle. So I'm just trying to give you a little backdrop. And so we saw that when they decided to separate, Lot, we went through the study already, Lot was given the opportunity to choose which way he wanted to go. And he saw the what? The beautiful plains of Sodom. And that's the way he went. He went that way.
Solid.
And then Abraham went the other way. Then Sodom got attacked. Abraham had to go what? And rescue his nephew. And that's kind of like where we are now. Just a little backdrop of the story. And the story is going to continue. So now let's take a look at chapter 16. Let's take a listen.
Chapter 16. Now Sarai, Abram's wife, bare him no children, and she had an handmaid, an Egyptian, whose name was Hagar. And Sarai said unto Abram,
Behold now, the Lord hath restrained me from bearing. I pray thee, go in unto my maid. It may be that I may obtain children by her.
And Abram hearkened to the voice of Sarai. And Sarai, Abram's wife, took Hagar, her maid, the Egyptian, after Abram had dwelt 10 years in the land of Canaan, and gave her to her husband Abram to be his wife. And he went in unto Hagar, and she conceived. And when she saw that she had conceived, her mistress was despised in her eyes. And Sarai said unto Abram,
My wrong be upon thee. I have given my maid unto thy bosom. And when she saw that she had conceived, I was despised in her eyes. The Lord judge between me and thee.
But Abram said unto Sarai,
Behold, thy maid is in thy hand. Do to her as it pleaseth thee.
And when Sarai dealt hardly with her, she fled from her face. And the angel of the Lord found her by a fountain of water in the wilderness, by the fountain in the way to Shur. And he said, Hagar, Sarai's maid, whence camest thou, and whither wilt thou go? And she said,
I flee from the face of my mistress Sarai.
And the angel of the Lord said unto her, Return to thy mistress, and submit thyself under her hands. And the angel of the Lord said unto her, I will multiply thy seed exceedingly, that it shall not be numbered for multitude. And the the angel of the Lord said unto her, Behold, thou art with child, and shalt bear a son, and shalt call his name Ishmael, because the Lord hath heard thy affliction. And he will be a wild man, his hand will be against every man, and every man's hand against him, and he shall dwell in the presence of all his brethren. And she called the name of the Lord that spake unto her.
Thou, God, seest me.
For she said,
Have I also here looked after him that seeth me?
Wherefore the well was called Bir Le-Haroi. Behold, it is between Kadesh and Bered. And Hagar bare Abram a son, and Abram called his son's name, which Hagar bare, Ishmael. And Abram was 86 years old when Hagar bare Ishmael to Abram.
All right. There we go. Now, let's look at this interesting story. So, we see that Abraham is dealt with leaving his family. He dealt with Lot. He dealt with the famine. And in doing all of that, he did accumulate some things that were prosperous to him. And he was able to bring that wealth with him. That wealth caused a division between him and Lot. But one of the things that he still had from his visit down to Egypt was that he still had what? Handmaids and servants and different ones that were there to help him with all the cattle, with all the sheep, with all the oxen that they had. You had all these different, and then you had different maids and nurses that would cater to Sarah and also to help Abram around his land there. Now, God also told Abram that you're going to be, as a matter of fact, his name means blessed or multiple father. That's what his name means, great or high father. But yet he has that name and he has that promise. God told him that you're going to be the father of what? Many nations. So how many children does he have?
Unnumbered.
So, I mean, at this particular point, he has none. All right. So now, once again, identify with this. When you know God has put something in your heart, and you know it's something that the Lord has given you, and you look 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years down the road, and you know God put this in your heart, and you're trying to figure out, well, where is it? And you don't see it. The tendency is to say what? What do we normally do? I'm done. I must have heard wrong. Or God, doubt. We get doubt. Right? Anybody been there? Anybody experienced that? That's a reality, isn't it? So this is what this chapter is talking about. All that they've been through, all the little struggles and up and downs, but yet God has been with them, and they still are not 100% sure what it is that we're supposed to be doing, and how this is going to work. I just know that God said we're going to be blessed beyond means, and we're going to be the father of many nations. But the how? Because it don't look like it's going to happen. It said at the end of this chapter, it said that they were getting up in age, didn't it? All right, so let's take a look at this. Let's break this down a little bit. It says, so now Sarai, Abram's wife, bare him no children. Back in that day, that was a problem. Because see, there wasn't but a couple of things that you were mandated to do as a wife. One of them was you were supposed to have children. Having children was part of your identifying as being an honorable wife, pleasing to your husband, contributing to society. It was just a major thing. Back then it was very, very important. And so now Sarah's trying to understand, why is this happening? All right. He's called, my name means wonderful mother. His name means high father. And yet we have what? No children. All right. So it says, she bare him no children. And she had a handmaid and what? Egyptian. Oh, where'd she come from? Egypt. So remember that trip they took down there, right? Okay. whose name was Hagar. And so Sarah said to Abram, behold now, the Lord hath restrained me from bearing. She's blaming it on who?
God.
Who else did that? Adam, what have you done? The woman you gave me. Eve, what have you done? The serpent beguiled me. Blame it. You ever blame your wife for something? No, don't answer that question. Yeah, we won't go there.
Keep it real, keep it 100.
See, when you point at me, two go back.
I knew where I was going to end up over here anyway. Because it's the real. I mean, come on. Can we just be real about that?
Amen.
Well, when we look for somebody to blame,
Yeah.
oh, we can do that.
Mm-hmm.
But you know when the maturity kicks in, the aspect of just, you know what? It's me. What's that song? It's me,
It's me, oh Lord.
Yeah. Standing at the need of prayer. And so that's what I need. I need the help. I can blame all day long. And see, and we have to be careful because sometimes we can be brought up in a culture of blame. And yes, there's plenty to point at, but you can't live in that. You can't live in, well, they keep me down. They holding me back. They're not giving me a chance. They're not cutting me a break. It's harder for me than it is for them. All the above may be what? True. But that still should not be a thing that you lean on. You got to be able to stand up and go, you know what? I'm going to go and do what God has called me to do. All right? So we have to be careful with that. But Sarah, she's... And the reason why I try to point this out, because sometimes I think we like looking at these biblical characters like they were some kind of Marvel superheroes or some X-Men, you know. Like, these are regular old folks, just human beings, just good old people that have issues just like what we do. All right? And so Sarah sitting there feeling all inadequate. I ain't got no child. I'm going to fix this. You ever see, you know, you look at your wife and you go, I'm going to fix this. And they're going to get it done. It's going to happen. And you know that when that's, guess what's going to happen? It's going to get fixed. You leave them alone, let them go. It's going to get worked out.
Amen.
Let's see what Abraham does. Let's see how he handles it. Let's take a little peep into their little discussion. All right? So, Sarah said to Abraham, behold, the Lord hath restrained me from bearing. I pray thee, go in to my maid. It may be that I may obtain children by her. Now, I'm going to underline that word. I may obtain. It may be that I may obtain. It may be that I may obtain. So you got to kind of read between the lines here. What is Sarah kind of thinking about right here?
Taking the baby.
Well, that's there too. But before that, Sarah's wondering, is it me or is it you?
There you go.
It may be. She didn't say, well, when you go in, then I will have a child. It may be that I may. Because I ain't sure whether the problem's with me or if the problem's with you. We're going to find out what the issue is. But one way or another, that question is going to get answered. Because if Hagar don't come up pregnant, guess what?
It's you.
And I know what's going on. Well, we're getting ahead of ourselves. Let's take a look. Look at this. There's some more to this. It may be that I may obtain children by her. And Abraham said, no way, I'm not doing that. What? Oh, your Bible don't say that?
No.
Wait a minute. Abraham said, no, I don't want to be with nobody else but you, baby.
No.
He didn't say that?
No.
Oh. Okay, let me get back to the real Bible. And Abraham hearkened to her voice. I mean, not even so much as a discussion. He just turned about and just went right on there. All right, but we would do better, right, brothers? Don't answer that question. All right. So Abraham hearkened to the voice of Sarah. And Sarah, Abraham's wife, took Hagar, her maid, the Egyptian. See how they keep throwing that out there?
Egyptian.
They're letting you know. After Abraham had dwelt 10 years in the land of Canaan. So how long were they in the land that God told them to go to? 10 years. All right, so now we have a flow. All right, in that land, and gave her to her husband. Wow. See, now we look at like Abraham, but also try to understand the heart and the emotion and the feeling of Sarah, of Sarai. I mean, how hurt does she have to be to go to that length, to go to those means? Now, granted, we're looking at it from the eyes of us today, which seems very unusual. But back then, that wasn't as unusual as it may sound. It was somewhat common. Right? So, but yet at the same time, she had to come up with this idea. But this is not how God wanted, and God's going to speak for himself about this later on in a few other chapters. All right. So then it says, and in verse 4, it says, and he went in unto Hagar. And here's the answer to the other question. And she what? Conceived. So where's the problem?
Sarah.
The problem with Sarah. And when she saw that she had conceived, her mistress was despised in her eyes. So now, let's pause and park here for a minute. So Hagar, she's hanging out now for the last 2 or 3 weeks with Abram, and they all together and they're cuddled up and everything, and then all of a sudden she's pregnant, and now Hagar is like, oh, it was definitely you, and so he's with me, and now all that little stuff kind of pops up in the air, the same kind of stuff that you will see even today when you got a man that's trying to deal with what? 2 women. Same issue here. You're going to have what? Strife.
Right.
Because it's not supposed to be. This isn't what God wanted.
No, it's not.
So right off the bat, Hagar now is developing a superiority aspect against who? Sarah. But from a standpoint of that day's culture, who was supposed to be the boss? Sarah. But now there seems to be an upheaval happening. She's trying to, I don't want to play my role anymore. I think I might be able to what? Replace you. That's why she's looking at Sarah with this despising eyes. Well, let's keep going. Interesting story, isn't it? Well, we know what happens. Let's see what happens. Let's keep going. So Sarah said unto Abram, my wrong. Oh, wait a minute. She said what?
My wrong.
My bad. I was wrong here. All right. But guess what? She don't stop there. My wrong be upon thee. See, I was wrong, but you too. My wrong be upon thee. Right? But then she explains it. She gives a little more detail. I have given my maid into thy bosom. And you want to underline that, because listen to how she's saying this. And this is why I say, understand the emotion and the hurt of Sarah. All she's trying to do is do what God said that was going to happen. But she's what? Confused. And she's trying to do it what? Herself. Her own way. And it's going to no help. God didn't ask for no help. And usually when you do this, you're going to end up like this. You're going to have some hurt feelings, some messed up circumstances and situations, and God's going to have to bail them out. But guess what? Once again, and I always will say this, is God caught off guard?
No.
And so even in your own life, when you should have went right and you went left, you should have went forward and you stopped, or you should have stopped and you went forward. When you all like that, did you surprise God?
No.
God knew about all your little failings and all your little mess ups and all your bad habits and all your bad traits and the things. And if you got You know, if you complacent, or if you got the attitude, or if you selfish, or if you angry, or whatever your thing may be, God knows it. Because he says he knows the very numbers, the very number of hairs on your head. For most of us, it's NA, non-applicable, but some of us. But God knows. I could tell y'all something, y'all would laugh, but I'm not going to say it. I'll tell you. I was looking in the mirror, and I saw a half-inch single piece of hair growing right up here. I said, where you been? I said, you late to the party. That party's over 30 years ago. I looked up there, I just looked at it for a little while. I said, wow, it looks healthy too. It wasn't gray or nothing. I was like, I said, look at here. So I went over and got my tweezers and I pulled them out.
Yeah, you might as well.
I said, you ain't gonna be able to do it by yourself. I'm sitting there looking at it. I'm like, where in the world did you get lost or something? I was like, but anyway, that just goes to show you, God knows you don't. So when God was counting,
made a detour, huh?
he did. He don't know where he thought he was going.
Well, that shows how long it took you to look in the mirror, because it's been what, like 3 inches?
It was about a half inch. About a half inch.
How long it takes that to grow?
That's what I'm saying. But you know, I ain't thinking about it. I'm just, you know.
You probably every time you got up, you did like that.
Just like that. Just was laying back. I was doing the laid back. Well, one hand. So I had to laugh at myself. I looked at that, and I was tempted to put it in. You know how you have those little teeny plastic bags? I was tempted to put it in a little plastic bag. And just look at it like, this is proof.
Keep hope alive. Okay, Jesse.
But then I just said, no, just let it flush it down the toilet. It's done. All right, where were we? I done got detoured here. All right, so we talking about number 5. All right, so Sarah said unto Abram, I was wrong, but so was you. I gave my maid to be in your bosom. All right? That's the wrong she knows. I should not allow you to be with somebody else, to have you and her fulfill what God said he was going to do with you and me. Mm-hmm. That's a problem. All right? But see, but God's going to deal with all this as we go through. Well, we won't get to it today, but we'll see it as we go through the rest of these chapters. He's going to handle it. He's going to tell them about themselves too. All right, and so now she's despised. I'm despised in her eyes, and the Lord judged between me and thee. And Abram said unto Sarai, behold, thy maid is in your hands. In other words, he said, "Just sweetheart, you the boss. You do what you got to do. All right. Do to her as it pleased thee." And when Sarai dealt hardly with her, so she went back and put her in her what? In her place. Let me explain something to you. I'm the head woman here, and you're the maid servant. Okay. So when she did that, she fled from her face, because now she was like, I can't go back to that same role. You know, she felt like that was just now it's beneath me. But that's so therefore she decided to what? I'm leaving. Mm-hmm. All right. Verse 7. We can say a lot about that when things happen. You know, when kids get certain age and they still got to be what? Like, okay, well, you gonna understand that this is still my house, or you got to do what? You got to go. And so you got to find that balance, and it's. Let me tell you, we can do a whole lesson on that. But we're going to go right to verse 7 here. Verse 7. And the angel of the Lord found her. The angel of who?
The Lord.
Found who?
Her.
Hagar. By the fountain of water. It's interesting. Remember when Jesus met the woman at the well?
The Samaritan.
All right. And this woman had a what? A problem. And Jesus said, go get your husband.
Yeah.
And what did she say?
I have none.
And he said, you're right.
He said, you're right.
You've had what?
5.
And the one you're with
now
is not yours. And so now here's the Lord in what we consider to be a incarnate state, talking to another woman at the well, that's got husband issues. Interesting, isn't it?
Yes.
All right. So it says, and the angel of the Lord found her by a fountain of water. In the what? In the wilderness. By the fountain in the way of Sheol. And he said to Hagar, Sarah's maid, whence comest thou, and whither goest thou? And she said, I flee from the face of my mistress Sarah. So she's saying, I got to get out of it. I can't deal with her. She's making it hard for me. Right? Verse 9. And the angel of the Lord said unto her, return. What?
Return.
What? Return?
That's what he said. Return.
Do you know how hard it is dealing with her? Do you know she's like on me day and night? She don't like me anymore. The Lord said, do what?
Return.
Wow. Now that's interesting sometimes, isn't it? Go back. All right. But he's not finished. He's going to say some more to her. Look what this. So the angel of the Lord said to her, return to thy mistress and submit thyself under her hand. Wait a minute. Time out. Who wants to do that?
Nobody.
On somebody that you know don't care for you? Somebody you know got your, they ain't got your back. They ain't looking for, they not even hoping for your success. They might not even want the baby to make it. You know, it don't say that here, but you can kind of read between the lines, right? This is real life stuff. All right. But the Lord says, go and submit to her what? To her hand. And the angel of the Lord, this is verse 10, said unto her, I will multiply thy seed exceedingly. In other words, that child that's in you will be a father of what? Many nations. I will multiply thy seed exceedingly, that it shall not be numbered for multitude. Wait a minute. Doesn't that sound familiar? Didn't somebody else get that promise? Who got that promise? Abraham. Abraham and Sarah got that promise. But wait a minute. It ain't exactly the same. It's going to be similar, but it's not exact.
Not exact.
Very similar, but not exact. It's going to be like the promised child,
Right.
but it's not the promised child.
child.
And I'm emphasizing this for a purpose. It looks like it could feel like it's the promised child, but it's what?
It's not.
All right. Let's keep going then. I'm going to get back to that. So, at verse 11, it says, and the angel of the Lord said unto her, behold, thou art with child, and thou shalt bear a son, and shall call his name, what? Wait. Before we say that, where have we heard this before?
I have.
Thou art with child, and thou shalt bear a son, and you shall call his name
Mary.
Mary. Ooh, interesting. But is this Jesus is about to be born? No. Okay, well, just keep this in mind. It sounds similar, don't it? But let's keep going. I want to draw a comparison here in a minute, but I want to make sure we kind of grist the skids a little bit. You shall bear a son, and shall call his name Ishmael. Why? Because the Lord have heard thy affliction. All right. So the Lord heard. You're going to bear the child. You're going to, and so even before the child is born, he's what? Given a name.
Right.
Verse 12. And he will be a what? Oh, wait a minute.
Wild man.
He's going to be a wild man?
That's what it says.
And his hand will be what? Against
Men.
No, wait, I'm reading it wrong. His hand will be helpful to everyone in the world.
His hand
No.
shall be against
His hand will be against
everyone. Every man.
What's every mean?
Everybody.
All right. So that means that these nations that are going to come from him, they're going to have some what?
Problem.
Now, why am I emphasizing? Why did I kind of went through that kind of slow and emphasized all that? Because this is the type.
Typish.
All right. When Jesus comes, he comes as the what? The promised Messiah.
Messiah.
Isaac, who's about to come later on, is going to become as the promised what? Child. He was promised. So, when in the midst of Isaac coming, before he actually arrives, there's another child that kind of looks like it should be the what? Promised child. But it's not. It's Ishmael. A wild man and a man that's against what? Every man. So when Jesus, before Jesus comes back again, there's going to be another one that's going to come, what? Like him. And he's going to be a wild man against everyone. Well, what does the Bible actually say about him? It says he's going to come on a white horse shooting a bow. Well, the Messiah is not coming on a white horse shooting a bow. The Messiah is coming on a white horse with a sword. So who's coming on the white horse with the bow?
Satan.
The coming in the form of who?
Antichrist.
The Antichrist. So you see how in a very metaphorical way, it's showing this aspect that before the true promise, there's always this mysterious thing here that looks like it, but it's not really true. It's the actual. This is not the promised child. This, and when the Antichrist comes, that's not going to be the promised return of the Messiah. So we're going to see this a lot as we go through the Old Testament. We're going to refer back to the New Testament and how it shows shadows and little glimpses of things. It's not always obvious, but if you take your time and just look at it and try to compare it, you'll see the Bible was speaking about this, about the Antichrist trying to come. And remember, the Antichrist is not coming as one that says, I don't believe in God. The Antichrist is coming as one trying to take the what? Place of God. I want you to believe in God, but to believe that I'm God. That's what Satan did. That was his whole thing. He told Eve, when you eat of this fruit, your eyes will be open and you will become as what? As God. So you can become your own what?
God.
And you can begin to worship yourself. That's what becoming your own God allows you to do. And so Ishmael's going to have this issue. He's going to be a wild man. He's going to be against everybody. You know why he's going to be against everybody? Because he ain't thinking about nobody. Who he's thinking about?
Himself.
That's the nature of the what?
Antichrist.
Okay. So we see this here. And you pick all this up just looking at this and you go, oh, okay, I see. So when God saw that they went down to Egypt and what was Sarah doing, the reason why God's not striking folks with lightning, because he knows that he's allowing things to happen, though they're going against his will, because it's going to show forth a type. Some of the types will match up with who? With Jesus. But some of the types that go array, some of the things that go array turn out to be types that match up with who? With the enemy. And God just allows it to happen. So you can get a glimpse as to this is what the enemy does anyway. This is how he works. And you can see his footprints.
Well, he's a confuser. He likes confusion.
And he loves confusion.
He's the author of it.
He is the author of it. All right. So so it says he's going to be a wild man, and every man's hand will be against him. And he shall dwell in the presence of all his brethren. Right, so he's going to be. He don't want to just. I don't want to be to myself. I want everybody to be with me and around me. I'm gonna be in their presence. But wait a minute, time out. If everybody's against you, why are you trying to get in everybody's presence, in the presence of all your brothers? Because see, he wants worship.
He wants that control.
He wants that control. All right. So it ain't like, well, I don't see. Sometimes if you hear people say, I don't really like people, they try to be to them what? Himself. But it ain't like that. It ain't that he don't like people. He wants the what? Like you said, he wants to control. He wants to manipulate. And that is a sure enough footprint of the enemy. That's Satan that tries to do that. And so what God is saying here, yeah, he's going to be an individual, and he will be blessed in this world, but he's going to have these issues. All right? All right, so let's move along here so we can get this in. All right, where we at now? 13. And she called the name of the place that God spake unto her, Thou God seeth me. Now that was the name. That's the definition of the name. We don't actually have the name, but it gives us the definition. So the name meant thou or the God sees me, because God saw her. Now, let's also put things in perspective. We don't know, it doesn't give us, and I can't say one way or the other, whether Hagar followed and believed in the Lord God of Abraham and eventually Isaac and Jacob. But we do know that God was blessing her. But we do know from the standpoint of not allowing her to be in the wilderness, not allowing her to be out by herself, but she had to go and submit herself, return and submit herself back to Sarah. All right? So, she is recognizing as, well, God is helping me, even though I got to go do something that's what? Difficult. All right, so she goes, for she said, I have also here looked after him, and that seeth me. So she's aware that God is looking out for who? For her. Verse 14. Wherefore the well was called Lahira, or Hiroi. All right, so give him that big old long name. Why? Because she wanted to do what we talked about before. She didn't build an altar, but she did bring a what? A remembrance. She called it something that would help her remember that God helped her. And that's an important thing too. And we dwelt on that before when we were talking about building an altar where God had blessed you, right? We won't go through all that again. All right. All right. And so behold, it's between Kadesh and Bered. And Hagar bare Abram a son. And Abram called his son's name, which Hagar bare, Ishmael. All right, so they called him Ishmael. Why? Because that's what the Lord told him to call him. And Abram was 86 years old. 80 is how old? 80. Score is 20 years, so 86 years old when Hagar bare Ishmael to Abram. So now, he's 86 years old. Now, when you go back in some of those other chapters, when we were going through some of the other patriots, we saw that some of these guys at this particular time were living to be 200, 180, 140 years old. And then you go back like Noah, he lived 950 years. And so we see the ages kind of dwindling down, and we talked about that because of the aspect of the flood and how the ozone and all that stuff. But we won't go through all that. But still, even though the ages where people were living longer, he's at a point now where that kind of God had promised and said, I won't dwell with people no longer than 120 years. And so Abraham is, or what? He's 80. And so that means he's already 2/3 of the way. And so, but wait a minute. The man was given a promise. See, you got to put yourself in Abraham. We're going to close with this. Abraham was like, listen, God, I don't left my family. All right? I don't left the land. I can't go back there. Any land I had, all the houses and lands that I had back in the old land, I can't go back and get this. I left as a young man. I'm in my 80s. And I don't have anything that looks like what you promised me. Is that an accurate description?
No.
What does he have?
He needs to have his faith.
That's what he needs to have. But what does he have tangible? Nothing.
Nothing.
Now we're gonna see this.
That's because he didn't do what he was told to do either.
So maybe if he had left without bringing Lot,
If he had to do what he was told to do.
maybe if he didn't go down, maybe if he didn't go down to Egypt. But how do we prove that?
We
You
can't.
can't. Exactly. You can't prove it. But who knows?
God knows.
But his complaint is real, but is it fair?
No.
No. Because he's supposed to be what?
In Canaan, right?
He's supposed to believe. He's supposed to be faithful.
To have faith.
That's it. Supposed to be faithful, supposed to be trusting God.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now that we can pin that on Abraham, let's put Abraham aside and let's put you in the middle now.
Yeah, you can pin it on me in a heartbeat.
Okay? So when we put ourselves out there,
Yeah, absolutely.
now can we understand, okay, those issues and those problems that I dealt with or I'm dealing with, now can you kind of understand, you know what, maybe God is still with me. Maybe let's take the maybe out. God is still with me. You're frustrated. You feel disappointed. You're heartbroken. You got issues. You feel neglected and left out and forgotten about.
Yes, Lord.
God's forsaken you?
Nope.
No. He said
Not
he'll never leave
according,
you.
not according to what I see here going on with Abraham and Sarai. And now look at Sarai. You know, she's sitting there. I done made a mistake. I'm trying to understand what's going on, and all I did was focus the attention more on what? On me as the problem. Should have left it alone. At least, you know, there would have been some doubt. Now there is no doubt. We know what the issue is. So now you feel like you made a real bad what? Mistake. We've been there. We've been there before.
Some mistakes you just can't take back.
Can't take it back.
Like that baby, Ishmael.
Can't take it back. And that baby's gonna be there.
And that baby's still there today.
Exactly. And it's gonna be who he is, and you got to deal with that. But when we read this, a lot of times we just read it and we say, okay, look at that, let's see that. But when you take them out and put yourself in there, now you can begin to recognize, okay, they could have wrote a chapter like this about my life. Because I done been through some crazy stuff that I just wish I hadn't went through. Or I did something that I wish I hadn't have done. Or I wish something I could have done what? Better. How often do we say that? You know, we try to tell these young folks, I don't know, what grade you are? What grade are you in? 9th grade. Ooh, if I could go back to the 9th grade.
I said that to them. Be a child again.
What would we do different?
A lot.
What grade you in?
Everything.
What grade you in? What? Man, boy, if we could go back to that, we could set up all kinds of stuff again. So what do you...
But what we?
Trust me, you do not want to be my age.
Huh?
Not in this generation.
She said you don't want her age in this generation.
Well,
But wait for a generation to come and you look back.
Right. But see now, that I'm glad she said that. Because why? Tell me why. Give me 1 or 2 reasons why.
Well, technically, it is your fault in the first place.
Oh, wait a minute.
Blame game. We gonna have
The woman you gave.
the parents you gave.
Man,
But go ahead, sweetheart. Go ahead.
it's our fault.
Let's
Yeah,
talk about it.
it's
No,
all
this.
your fault.
this-
What do we do? Okay.
What we do?
Smoking, drugs, all that other stuff. That's all your fault.
It's all our fault.
Yeah.
Okay. Can't deny that. Can't deny that. But
Now,
what,
so
but what about?
what changes?
But
you
what
made?
about the people that helped to get us out of slavery through Jim Crow? You know what Jim Crow is?
Yeah.
Okay. Segregation, separate but equal, all that. Whose fault was that? Who helped do that? Our generation and the generations before us too.
Yeah.
All right.
I just like to say, there is issues and generational things that does go on, and we are, because of our human nature, just like Sarah did with Abraham and Eve did with Adam, point at the next best thing that's near us. But we fail to realize, which Brother Hughes brought out, that who's the prince of this world? He's the one that really should be blamed. It's not, and we're being used
Your pawns, yeah.
in his schemes. So yeah, we blame what we can see, but we don't fight against flesh and blood. Our war is in the spiritual realm. That's who's really fighting against us and putting all these things out, that's causing the world to decay and causing us to have ill feelings and wrongness done to us. But we can't see, we need, we just fight against what we can see. But it's deeper than that.
But he's in the background,
Whispering
and whispering
and putting, conjuring up stuff.
Like the Bible says, every thought that comes to your mind is not your own. You ever be walking and something comes in your mind and tell you something that you like, that ain't right. You ever get that? Okay, do you think that just came from you? No, it's the enemy. That's his job. His job is to defeat. That's what he can. His job, he wants to destroy us. He wants to kill us. Because he doesn't have the chance that we have. We have eternal life. He can't have it.
That's why.
So therefore, he puts little things in your mind.
Didn't you ever hear when people say, don't do like I do, do like I say? You never heard that. That's what I tell my nephews all the time. Don't do like I do like I say. I can tell you the right thing. That don't mean I'm always going to do the right thing. But I will tell you the right thing. Then you have a choice. You understand? Because like when you said that's your generation, see, that's what I try to do. I always try to blame all my problems on someone else. I don't want to take the blame for nothing Wayne did. Why should I? I'm good. It's not my fault. It's his fault. It's her fault. It's his fault. That's what I did. I never wanted to take the blame for anything that I did. And the reason why I ended up the way I did, because I didn't take my own blame. So now when you carry your own weight, you can change things.
So true. That's some good words.
That's why we
hard
need to know the word.
It's hard. But like with you right now, it's peer pressure. Don't do what your friends do. If you know they're doing wrong, don't do it. I'm not going to say you're going to do it, but you have to say to yourself, you know what, just like you said, I'm not going to do that. It's hard.
Very hard.
I can tell you that from experience, because I said, well, I give in. Just can't give in.
Everybody in this room has done something wrong in their past.
Right.
More than one thing. More than just something.
Everybody in here, you tell me, we got a story for everything that goes on.
And it's not only that, we're not perfect. We're going to still do things wrong.
Right. Even after reading this all day long, you're still going to make mistakes. But one thing I will say to you is that you do want to try to find your strength through the mess, because I agree with you. This dude, 9th grade today, even though you don't have the same problems, you're not worried about something generally, even though I shouldn't say that, because they still shooting black men down today. But back in the day, they would just come to your house, drag them out, and hang them on a tree. For just whatever they wanted to do. And then that's not the only issue. I mean, that's an issue, but there are other issues too. There's just right and wrong. There's personal issues. There's greed. There's excesses and things. But you got to find your relationship with the Lord where I can go through this, because the scripture says that He will not put more on you that you can bear. Now we outlined this story, and we're not even nowhere near finished with Abram, and we know God called him, and he went through some mess. All right, and we're gonna see Daniel, go through some mess. When we through this Old Testament, we're gonna see Joseph in just a little while. Poor Joseph, he talking about blaming people. His brothers sold him to the Midianites, and then he ended up back in Egypt through no fault of his own. So we're gonna see that, and then we're gonna try to allocate that to our own experience to see how we end up in the jailhouse. See, a jail ain't always just with bars. You can be in a jail because you ain't got the finances. I want to go here, and you hit the bar of don't have the wherewithal to do it. You could be in that jail. You can be in the jail of social aspect. I would like to go here, but they don't like me over here. They don't like me over here, and they don't like me over here. Well, guess what? You in jail. And the devil don't care how he gets you. I mean, what you say? He don't care what kind of jail he can put you in. He just wants you locked up, unable to do. And we find ourselves in all kinds of incarcerated states of life that we're going to see as we go through this that these individuals find themselves in. But watch how God does what? Bring them out. Now, when we already went through the New Testament, when we went through the book of Acts, when we saw that Peter was in jail, real jail, and the angel came and did what? Opened the jail, let him out. And that's just, it's symbolic of our state, that we are facing barriers time and time and time again, but we still trust on who to get us out. All right? And so Peter and Paul, they weren't in jail once. They were in jail what? Multiple times. So we think that, once God sets me free, I'm going to do my happy dance. I'm going to do my praise the Lord. And I'm going to just, I'm going to go, because you don't think it's ever going to happen again. No, it may happen again. So you just got to praise the Lord what? Regardless.
Have faith.
I'm always good.
It's just like you were saying, because I never forget when I was in rehab, and it's like I'm saying, man, this is my third time here this year. I said, what's wrong with you? I'm trying to figure out what's wrong with me. And I never forget John Lucas. He played for the Houston Rockets. He came in and said, you're locked up in your own mind. I said, what? He said, yeah. He said, you're a prisoner of your own mind. He said, you just got to let things go. He said, you have to admit things that you do. Stop blaming. And as soon as he said that, I looked at him and said, you don't know me. He said, no, I was just like you. When I left the rehab, I never went back. And that's all I needed. That's all I needed. Like I said, and like everything I'm going through now, man, when I got this doctor and she said, don't worry about it. We gonna look out for you. We gonna take care of you. We gonna get you right. She didn't say me. She said, we gonna get you right. And I looked at it and I said, all right, this will work. I really said to myself, this will work. And every time she talks to me, she don't say, I'm gonna do this. She say, we gonna do this. And she said, I don't mean me and you. She said, because there's somebody that can take care of all your problems. All you got to do is walk this path that he has me taking you down. Because I told her today, I said, I'm tired. I told her, she said, just give me 2 more months.
And I know we're going long here, but when he said that, so you keep opening up little cans of worms. He said, I'm tired. See, that's another aspect of like the will. And to I'm sorry, what's your name, sweetheart? Naomi. You got a beautiful biblical name. You can't get discouraged because you see the problems. You see, well, it could have been better. Y'all could have fixed this. And that's powerful. Just like what Wayne said. Abraham maybe could have fixed his issue if he had a left Lot, didn't take him, do what God told him. If he had not have went to Egypt, stayed what God told him. That's the part. And you could preach that scenario gospel all day long, but that ain't what happened.
Right. But see, that's what I keep trying to tell myself. The more we go through this, I keep trying to tell myself, you have to stop. Like you always say, read between the lines. Just like I go back to Adam and Eve. If he didn't hide, he could have just said, God, I made a mistake. Instead of blaming somebody. See, because that's what I always did. I always blamed somebody else for what I did. And that's where I ended up where I ended up. You know, that's not easy. Come back. It's not easy for me to even say right to this day. You know, yeah, I did. Like I said, I did a lot of things wrong. Just by the grace of God, I'm still here. And I say that all the time. That's the only reason why I'm here.
Right.
Because, you know, they always told me, you're not going to live to see 21. I'm 61.
There we go.
You know, and that's not because of me.
That's right.
Because I'm a dummy.
But God knows you got some things.
Listen.
You got some things to
Like
say.
my mother always said, she said, you walk on your brains because I was born feet first. So she said, that's all you do, you walk on your brains. She said, that's what you walk on your brains. You know what I'm saying?
That's the saying.
You ain't got no sense.
But let me get back to Naomi. What you don't want to do when you see all that could be, and it's not, and you said that a couple minutes ago, don't get tired, because then you quit. So you got to recognize, yeah, that's a problem, and I got to find one little nook and cranny that I can maneuver through, and maybe change, and maybe make it good, better for one or two others, because you can't change, you can't fix it all. If I can help with one or two spots, at least that spot's not messed up. And I'm gonna close. Let me close with this. There's a scenario that happened. I forget which beach it was, but there was this storm that happened, and in this where the sea was, and the storm washed up all these starfish that were on the reef onto the beach, and then the water receded, and the sun came out, and of course the starfish without the water and their inability to really walk, they're going to be on the beach and they're going to dry up and what? And die. Well, not a little boy, but a young fella, he went out there and he was grabbing the starfish, and there was thousands of them, and he was grabbing the starfish early in the morning before the sun come up and bake them, and he was throwing them back in the water. And a guy, older gentleman, came up and said, young fella, there's thousands over here. You're not going to really make a difference. He picked up another starfish and he threw it in the water. And he said, I made a difference for that one. That particular one didn't die. Now, I can't save them all, but I saved that one. And that's what you have to kind of keep in mind when you see things that I can't fix the world, but I don't think God's asking you to do it. But if you can pick up one starfish and throw it back in, then your life has meaning, purpose, and it's needful. But you can't get tired. You can't get discouraged because you look at stuff and it ain't the way you think it should be. I agree with you. It should be better, but it's not. That's the realities of it. So you got to look within yourself and go, okay, how am I going to handle that? Okay. Am I going to try to do it myself? That's still noble, but I think you'd be better off trying to get some help. And what's the best help you can find?
The Lord God.
And that's what I would advise that you try to understand and grasp on. And you'll find some motivation and
direction.
And I said I was going to close with that. Let me close with this. Gifts and callings are without repentance. A lot of times, things that eat at you deeply are associated with your gift that God has given you. And that's why it's very sensitive to you, certain things. So if you happen to see things like that, like you feel there should be some change, and you're young enough to be able to understand it, that might be something that God wants to use you for. So you always got to ask God to give you some insight and some understanding about that. Seeing problems, a lot of times, can be your gift, because you know where to go, how to, what we need to do, but you're gonna need some help. You ain't gonna be able to do it by yourself. All right?
I'm not saying that I don't try. I do. I feel like I try too hard. Sometimes I feel like what my therapist said is to hang up the cape, not to be Superwoman or Supergirl, and try to handle all your problems by yourself.
I agree.
And I tried so hard to multitask and do everything all at once, but then I get overwhelmed.
Mm-hmm.
That's why you have Jesus.
So you have to do
That's why you have God.
You gotta.
He can help you.
find the stuff that you can handle, and do that, and don't worry about the rest. And you know, like the little boy with the starfish. You seeing all these other ones. I can't do all of it. So let me pick up one thing at a time and handle that. One day at a time. And sometimes you're trying to. I want to fix this for next year. Worry about the next hour, the next day, and go on, and handle what's in front of you. All right. You got your school stuff going on. Right? That's and prioritize. I like to have friends, and everybody needs friends, but also got to think about I got school, and like he said, don't worry about peer pressure either, because sometimes they're so all that is part of. And when you go through this work, you're gonna see all this has been. There's nothing new under the sun, and I'm gonna stop with that. Give us a prayer before I say something else.
Can we pray over the food as well?
Yeah.
Anybody, before he does that, yes. Anybody else want to say something? I'm sorry.
Before we go into prayer, it's I'm not a songster, but it's been a song that's just been ringing in my heart, and I'm gonna just ask if you guys could just join in with me with it. And to Naomi, you're not alone, and you're not doing everything by yourself. You don't have to. You have Jesus in your heart that can help you. So maybe what your therapist is saying is that, to hang up your